He was the man of my dreams, the architect of our perfect future. But in his secret life, I was just a roommate, and I was about to dismantle everything he'd built. The smell of dark roast coffee and toasted sourdough is supposed to be the smell of home. For 3 years, it was the smell of my life with Mark. It was the scent of safety, of lazy Sunday mornings wrapped in his arms, of a future so bright and certain it practically hummed in the air between us. Mark was, by all accounts, perfect. He was the kind of man my mother dreamed I'd find, handsome in a rugged, unassuming way, a stable job as an architect, and a smile that could coax the truth out of a statue. He remembered the little things, like how I took my coffee oat milk, one stevia, and the name of my childhood dog. He'd leave little notes on the bathroom mirror, drawn in the steam after his shower. "Have a great day, superstar," or "Can't wait for movie night." We were that couple, the one our friends simultaneously envied and used as their relationship gold standard. So when the first crack appeared, I almost didn't see it. It was tiny, a hairline fracture in the solid foundation of our life. It was about 2 months ago. We were on the couch, watching some mindless reality show, my legs draped over his lap. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. Screen down. It was after 11 p.m. He didn't move to get it. That wasn't unusual. We had a loose, no phones after 10 rule. But then it buzzed again. And a third time. An insistent rhythmic vibration that cut through the cheerful noise of the TV. I saw his jaw tighten just for a second. "Someone's popular tonight," I teased, reaching for the remote to pause the show. "Probably just a group chat blowing up," he said, his voice a little too casual. He got up, stretched, and picked up the phone, angling the screen away from me as he swiped it open. He typed a quick reply, his thumbs flying, then slipped it into his pocket. The casualness felt performed. It was the first time I felt like I was watching him act. I told myself I was being ridiculous, paranoid. In a relationship this good, your brain sometimes tries to self-sabotage, right? Looking for problems where none exist. So I let it go. But then more cracks started to appear. He started taking his phone with him everywhere. To the bathroom, to take out the trash. If he was in the kitchen getting a glass of water, the phone was in his hand or his pocket. He, who used to leave it lying around for hours, was now tethered to it. Then came the working late nights. Mark's job was demanding, so it wasn't unheard of, but they started happening more frequently. And when he'd come home, smelling faintly of a perfume that wasn't mine, something floral and sweet that I told myself must be from a coworker, maybe someone he passed in the elevator, he seemed exhausted in a way that felt different from work tired. It was a guarded, emotionally distant kind of tired. The final straw wasn't some grand, dramatic event. It was a single word. I was talking about our savings for a house deposit, showing him a listing for a little place with a garden I'd fallen in love with. We'd been planning it for over a year. He glanced at the screen, a non-committal, in his throat. "We're so close," I said, my voice full of excitement. "Another 6 months, maybe?" And he replied, without looking at me, "Things are a bit tight right now." Tight? He'd just gotten a bonus. I knew he had. He'd told me about it. When I gently pressed him on it, he got defensive. "It's complicated, okay? It's just work stuff." The way he shut down the conversation, the cold finality in his tone, it was like a slap. It was then that the quiet, nagging whisper of doubt in the back of my mind became a roar. The not knowing was eating me alive, hollowing me out from the inside until I felt like a fragile shell of the happy, secure woman I used to be. That night, I lay in bed next to him, my back to his, pretending to be asleep. I listened to his breathing deepen into the slow, steady rhythm of a man without a single worry in the world. And I hated him for it. I hated his peace while my own mind was a hornet's nest of suspicion and fear. His phone was on the nightstand, charging. It was the enemy, a sleek black rectangle holding all the answers I was terrified to find. I knew his passcode, or I used to. He'd changed it a few weeks ago, claiming he'd had to for a new security protocol at work. A lie, I now realized. But his phone had fingerprint access. I watched the rise and fall of his chest. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I knew that crossing this line would change everything. If I was wrong, I would become the monster, the paranoid girlfriend who violated his trust. But if I was right, I had to know. Slowly, silently, I slipped out of bed. The floorboards didn't creak. The world seemed to be holding its breath with me. I crept to his side of the bed, my shadow long and distorted in the moonlight. I picked up the phone. It was cool and smooth in my trembling hands. I went into the settings, my fingers flying through menus I'd half memorized from my own phone. Security and privacy, fingerprint ID. It asked for the passcode, which I didn't have, but underneath there was another option. Add fingerprint. My breath hitched. To add a new one, you just needed one of the old ones. I glanced at his sleeping form. His right hand was resting on the duvet, his thumb relaxed. My stomach churned with a toxic mix of guilt and adrenaline. This was insane. It was wrong. But the thought of going another day in this agonizing uncertainty was worse. I took a deep, shaky breath, held the phone over his hand, and gently, so gently, pressed his thumb to the small sensor on the back. A tiny vibration. The screen changed. Place your finger on the sensor. I pressed my own thumb down. Vibrate, lift, vibrate. Lift. Again and again, mapping the ridges and whorls of my digit into his private world. When it was done, a small message appeared. Fingerprint added. I put the phone back on the charger, exactly as it was, and crept back to my side of the bed. I didn't sleep a wink. For 3 days, I lived with the key to Pandora's box in my thumbprint. I acted normal. I laughed at his jokes. I kissed him goodbye in the morning. I asked about his day. It was the hardest performance of my life. Every buzz of his phone was a shot of ice in my veins. I was waiting for the right moment, the perfect opportunity where I wouldn't be caught. This morning, it came. He was running late, rushing to get ready for a big presentation. He jumped in the shower and I heard the water start to run. And there it was, on the nightstand, gleaming under the lamp. My body moved before my mind could object. I snatched it up, my hands clammy. I walked into the living room, as far from the sound of the shower as I could get, and sank into the armchair. My pulse was a jackhammer in my ears. I took a breath, held the phone, and pressed my thumb against the sensor. Click. The screen sprang to life. My face reflected on the home screen. I was in. A wave of nauseating triumph washed over me, immediately followed by a cold, black dread. My fingers trembled as I tapped on the green message icon. My eyes scanned the list of names. And there it was, near the top, a name I didn't recognize, pinned to the very first spot. Chloe. With a little white heart emoji next to it. My blood ran cold. I tapped on the conversation. The most recent messages were from last night, after I'd gone to sleep. Harmless stuff. Thinking of you. You'll kill it tomorrow. I started scrolling up. Days of messages. Weeks. My vision blurred with tears as I scrolled faster and faster, a desperate archaeologist digging through the ruins of my life. Then I stopped. A picture. From about a month ago. It was a selfie of a blonde woman I'd never seen before, smiling coquettishly at the camera. But it wasn't her that made the air leave my lungs. It was where she was. She was lying in our bed, propped up against my pillows, and she was wearing my favorite of Mark's old university sweatshirts, the one I always stole to sleep in. Underneath the photo was a caption from her, sent to Mark. The words burned themselves onto my brain, a permanent brand of betrayal. Missing our morning cuddles, it read. Tell your roommate I said hi, roommate. The word echoed in the sudden roaring silence of my mind. Roommate, not girlfriend, not partner, not the love of his life. Just a roommate, an obstacle, a piece of furniture in the background of his real life with Chloe. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The air in my lungs turned to glass shards. The phone felt impossibly heavy in my hand, a black mirror reflecting a version of my life I didn't recognize. The sound of the shower, the rhythmic spray of water against tile, was a drumbeat counting down the seconds until my world officially ended. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall. I wanted to storm into the bathroom and shove it in his smiling, lying face. But a strange, cold clarity washed over me, extinguishing the fire of my initial rage. A confrontation now would just be a screaming match. He'd lie. He'd gaslight me. He'd call me crazy for going through his phone, turning this whole thing around to be my fault. And he would win. He'd walk away, and I'd be left shattered in the wreckage. No, he didn't deserve the satisfaction. My thumbs started moving with a life of their own, a chillingly calm precision taking over. Screenshot. I captured the picture of her in my bed. Screenshot. The roommate comment. I scrolled up, my heart a cold, dead stone in my chest. There was so much. Can't wait to have the place to ourselves again. She's so oblivious, it's almost sad. Just a few more months, babe. Then it's just you and me. Every message was a new stab wound. He wasn't just cheating. He was actively plotting the end of our life together, all while kissing me goodnight. I found pictures of them on dates at our favorite restaurant, at the botanical gardens we were supposed to visit for my birthday. There were videos of them laughing in his car, her hand on his thigh. I felt like a ghost, watching a life that had been happening in parallel to mine, completely invisible to me. I forwarded every single screenshot to my own number, then meticulously deleted the sent messages and the screenshots from his photo album, even checking the recently deleted folder and clearing it out. I was a digital phantom. Then I went deeper. I opened his banking app, same fingerprint access. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. There they were, dozens of transactions, Venmo payments to Chloe B, with captions like, for the dress, dinner, spoil yourself. Then I saw the big ones. $2,000 transferred 3 weeks ago, labeled apartment deposit, the tight finances, the bonus that had mysteriously vanished. It hadn't vanished. He'd given it to her. He was building a new life with her using the money we were saving for our future. He was literally taking the bricks of our foundation and using them to build a home with someone else. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, it was almost sublime. It wasn't just about sex, it was about everything. He had been systematically erasing me for months. The water stopped. My head snapped up. The sudden silence was deafening. Panic, hot and sharp, finally broke through my icy calm. I had seconds. I closed every app, swiped away all the evidence of my intrusion, and locked the screen. My legs felt like lead as I moved back to the bedroom, my body screaming with the urge to run, to just get out. But I forced myself to walk slowly, to place the phone back on the nightstand exactly where it had been, cord neatly arranged. I slid back into my side of the bed just as the bathroom door opened. Steam billowed out, and there he was, a towel wrapped around his waist, water droplets glistening on his shoulders. He looked at me lying in bed and gave me that perfect, heart-melting smile, the one I used to think was reserved just for me. "Hey, you're awake," he said, his voice soft and warm. He walked over and leaned down to kiss my forehead. His skin smelled of my body wash, our shared soap. The intimacy of it, the sheer audacity, sent a wave of nausea through me. I had to fight every muscle in my body to not flinch away. "Morning," I managed to whisper, my voice hoarse. I watched him as he walked to the closet, completely oblivious. He was a stranger, a dangerous stranger I had been sharing a bed with, a life with. He hummed a little tune as he picked out a shirt, the picture of a man without a care in the world. He was thinking about his presentation. He was probably thinking about Chloe. He definitely wasn't thinking about me, the roommate, lying in the bed he'd defiled. And in that moment, seeing him so happy, so utterly unaware of the bomb I was now sitting on, The plan bloomed in my mind. It was no longer about just leaving. It was about justice. It was about making him feel even a fraction of the humiliation and pain he had so casually inflicted on me. He wanted a roommate? Fine. I would be the best damn roommate he'd ever had. The kind who knows where all the bodies are buried. The kind who smiles to your face while methodically dismantling your entire life, piece by piece. He turned back to me, buttoning his shirt. "I'm going to nail this presentation today," he said, beaming with confidence. "Wish me luck." I propped myself up on my elbows, forcing the sweetest smile I could muster onto my face. It felt like stretching a mask over a skull. "You don't need luck," I said, my voice dripping with false adoration. "But I've got a surprise for you when you get home tonight. Something to celebrate with." His eyes lit up. He probably thought it was something sexy, something special just for him. He had no idea. The surprise I had in mind wasn't for him. It was for Chloe, and I was going to make sure she got it delivered personally. The hours after Mark left for work were a blur of cold, calculated fury. My grief was still there, a massive, gaping wound in my chest, but I packed it away in a box and shoved it into a dark corner of my mind. There was no time for tears. Tears wouldn't get me justice. Action would. My first move was to find her. Chloe B. The Venmo transaction was my key. A quick search on social media, cross-referencing the name with Mark's small list of recent followers, and there she was. Her profile picture was the same one from his phone, the coy smile, the blonde hair. Her profile was public. Of course it was. She was the kind of woman who lived her life for an audience. I scrolled through a curated feed of brunch cocktails, beach sunsets, and selfies, captioned with meaningless, inspirational quotes. It was a highlight reel of a life I was apparently funding. And there, buried amongst the photos of avocado toast, I found it. A post from 3 weeks ago. A picture of a set of keys in her hand, with the corner of a signed lease peeking out from underneath. The caption read, "Finally, so excited for this next chapter, can't wait to make this place a home." The location tag was a new luxury apartment complex downtown, the one Mark had pointed out last month, saying the architecture was uninspired. He was a phenomenal liar. My plan began to take shape, solidifying from a vague notion of revenge into a precise, multi-step operation. Step 1 was financial. I logged into our joint savings account, the house fund. The balance was lower than it should have been, but there was still a significant amount there. My half was mine. He had stolen from our future, so I was reclaiming my share. With a few clicks, I transferred exactly 50% of the remaining balance into my personal account. Then I opened a new credit card in my name, a safety net for what was to come. I wasn't just leaving him, I was extricating myself, cauterizing every point of connection. I meticulously went through every shared bill, every utility, every streaming service, mentally cataloging what was in his name and what was in mine. I was an auditor of our shared life, preparing to liquidate the assets. Step 2 was more personal. It was about the narrative. He had painted me as the roommate, an inconvenient footnote in his grand love story with Chloe. I decided it was time Chloe learned the truth about her romantic hero. But a simple text message wouldn't do. It was too easy for him to deny, to twist. He could claim I was a crazy, jealous ex. No, this required something with more impact, something undeniable. I went into our bedroom and opened his closet. I looked at the neat rows of his shirts, the clothes of the man I thought I knew. I felt nothing. I reached past them to the back and pulled out a small, unassuming shoebox. It was our memory box. We'd started it on our first anniversary. Inside were ticket stubs from our first movie, a dried rose from a Valentine's bouquet, a postcard from our trip to the coast, and photos, dozens of photos of us, laughing, kissing, holding hands at a friend's wedding, looking so sickeningly in love it made my stomach turn. I selected the most potent ones. Us on the day we signed the lease for this apartment, him kissing me on the cheek, us celebrating our 3rd anniversary just 2 months ago, a picture he himself had posted online with the caption, 3 years with my favorite person. I packed these photos, along with printouts of the screenshots from his phone, the roommate text, the picture of her in our bed, into a large manila envelope. I also printed out the bank statement showing the $2,000 transfer for her apartment deposit. I wanted her to see in black and white that her next chapter was written with the ink of our stolen future. Then I wrote a letter. My hand was perfectly steady. There were no tears, no angry scribbles, just cold, hard facts. Chloe, it began. I'm not sure what Mark has told you about me, but my name is Sarah. I am not his roommate. I am his girlfriend of 3 years. We live together. We were saving for a house together. The enclosed photos are just a small snapshot of the life he has been living with me, while he has been building one with you. The bank statement is for the deposit on your new apartment, paid for from our joint savings account. I don't know if you are a victim in this or a willing accomplice, but you deserve to know the kind of man you're with. He is a liar and a thief. Whatever you choose to do with this information is up to you, but he will be out of my apartment by the end of the week. I didn't sign it with love or even with my name. I just left it cold, clinical, a final report on a failed experiment. With the package sealed, I moved to the final and most crucial part of my plan for the day. I logged into his Amazon account still saved on the shared iPad and looked up his office address. He was giving a big presentation, so I knew he'd be there all day. The delivery had to be timed perfectly. I found a local courier service that promised same-day 2-hour delivery. I paid the rush fee. It was worth every penny. The destination was not Mark's office. It was Chloe's. I had found her workplace, a boutique marketing firm, from her LinkedIn profile. I addressed the package to Chloe B., marking it personal and confidential. The delivery window was set for 3 p.m. I imagined the scene. She's at her desk, in the middle of a slow afternoon. A courier arrives with a package just for her. She's intrigued. She opens it, and her world, just like mine had that morning, cracks open, the lies spilling out like poison. As the courier confirmation email dinged on the iPad, I felt the first real tremor of emotion break through my icy resolve. It wasn't sadness. It was a terrifying, exhilarating sense of power. He thought his phone was locked. He thought his life was compartmentalized. He thought he was in complete control. He had no idea that I had just lit a fuse, and the bomb was set to go off in the middle of his perfect, curated new life. I stood in the middle of our living room, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the only sound. The sun streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. It looked so normal, so peaceful. But it was the calm before a hurricane of my own making. At 3:05 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was an email notification from the courier service. The subject line made my heart stop. Your package has been delivered and signed for by Chloe B. It was done. The bomb had been delivered. Now, I just had to wait for it to explode. The silence in the apartment after that delivery confirmation was a living thing. It pressed in on me, thick and heavy with anticipation. Every car that drove by, every distant siren, every creak of the old building felt like a prelude to the explosion I knew was coming. I spent the next few hours on autopilot, a ghost in my own home. I packed a suitcase. Not everything, just the essentials. My clothes, my toiletries, my laptop, and a small box of things that were unequivocally mine books he'd never read. Gifts from my family, my grandmother's locket. I left his things untouched. I looked at the framed photo of us on the mantelpiece, the one from our anniversary. I picked it up, ran my thumb over his smiling, treacherous face, and placed it face down. I couldn't bear to look at it, but I couldn't bring myself to smash it either. That felt too messy, too emotional. My plan was clean. Surgical. Around 4:30 p.m., the first shockwave hit. My phone buzzed, a frantic, angry vibration against the kitchen counter. It was Mark. I let it go to voicemail. A second later, it buzzed again and again. He was calling repeatedly, the calls coming in one after another, a digital tantrum. Then the texts started, a rapid-fire barrage of pure panic. "Sarah, what did you do? Chloe is calling me crying. What the hell is going on? Pick up the phone right now. Did you send her something? Answer me." I read the messages, a cold, detached satisfaction settling in my gut. The bomb had gone off and the fallout was immediate and spectacular. He was floundering, his two carefully separated worlds colliding in a fiery wreck. I didn't reply. My silence was my new weapon. It was more powerful than any screaming match could ever be. Let him stew in the mess he'd made. Let him try to lie his way out of a box full of photographic evidence. I made myself a cup of tea, my hands surprisingly steady, and sat on the couch. I pictured him at his office, probably hiding in a bathroom stall, his triumphant post-presentation high dissolving into sheer terror. He was trying to call Chloe, trying to call me, attempting to perform damage control on a disaster he couldn't comprehend. He thought he was so smart, so careful, but he'd underestimated me. He hadn't just seen me as a roommate. He'd seen me as stupid, oblivious, complacent. That was his fatal error. At 5:45 p.m., exactly when he usually left the office, my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID was an unknown number. I hesitated for a second, then a grim curiosity took over. I answered, but said nothing. For a moment, there was only the sound of shaky breathing on the other end. Then a female voice, thin and watery, as if she'd been crying for hours. "Is this Sarah?" she asked. "Who's asking?" I replied, my voice cool and even. It's Chloe." My heart gave a painful lurch. This was an unexpected development. I had armed her with the truth, expecting her to turn her fury on him, not on me. "He told me you were just his roommate," she sniffled. "He said you guys were friends from college and you were having a hard time, so he was letting you stay here for a few months. He said you knew all about me." The lies were so audacious, so complete, I almost had to admire the artistry. He hadn't just built a second life, he'd built an entire fictional universe to support it. "Does it look like we're just roommates?" I asked, my voice devoid of sympathy. I had none to spare for her. "No," she whispered. There was a pause. I could hear her take a ragged breath. "He's a monster. I'm so sorry." "You're sorry?" I repeated, a bitter laugh almost escaping my lips. "Did you enjoy sleeping in my bed, wearing my boyfriend's sweatshirt?" "I didn't know," she insisted, her voice rising in pitch. "I swear I had no idea. If I had known, I never would have." I cut her off. "It doesn't matter now. What do you want, Chloe?" I wanted to hear your voice, to say I'm sorry. He's been calling me nonstop, saying you're a crazy, jealous bitch who faked everything." "And do you believe him?" "Not after seeing that bank statement," she said, her voice hardening. "That was from your joint account, wasn't it? My apartment deposit." "Yes," I said, "it was." The line went quiet for a long moment. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. She wasn't just heartbroken, she was implicated. She was the recipient of stolen funds. "He's on his way home now," she finally said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He thinks he's going to talk to you, to smooth things over, to lie some more." A new idea began to form in my mind, an improvisation on my original plan. Mark thought he was coming home to a confrontation with me. He was preparing his lines, his fake tears, his accusations. He was walking into what he thought was a one-act play. But what if I changed the cast? "Where are you right now?" I asked her. "I'm at my apartment, packing his stuff. He left a bunch of clothes here." "Good," I said, my voice firm. "Bring it. Bring all of it." "Bring it where?" she asked, confused. "Here," I said, a slow, predatory smile spreading across my face. "To our apartment. I believe you have the address. I'll let you in. I think it's time the roommate and the girlfriend finally had a chance to meet, and I think we should be here to welcome Mark home together." There was a beat of stunned silence on the other end of the line, then a sound that might have been a choked laugh or a sob. "Are you serious?" Chloe asked, her voice a cocktail of disbelief and something else. Intrigue. He'll lose his mind. "That's the point," I said, the plan now fully formed and gleaming with a wicked brilliance. He played us against each other in a story where he was the star. It's time we co-wrote a new ending. She agreed. The enemy of my enemy, it seemed, was my new, temporary, and very motivated ally. 40 minutes later, there was a soft knock on the door. I opened it to find Chloe standing there, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, her arms wrapped around a cardboard box overflowing with Mark's clothes. She was prettier in person than in her photos, which was somehow even more infuriating. But looking at her, seeing the same shattered look in her eyes that I felt in my own soul, my anger toward her softened into a strange, shared pity. She was just another victim of his elaborate deception. Without a word, I helped her carry the box inside. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. We were two strangers bound by a profound and intimate betrayal. Together, we worked. It was a bizarre and cathartic ritual. I pulled out black trash bags from under the sink. We went through the apartment, room by room, and systematically erased him. His clothes from the closet, his toothbrush from the bathroom, his stupid, pretentious architecture books from the shelves. Everything went into the bags. Chloe recognized a shirt he'd worn on a date with her and threw it into a bag with a particular vengeance. I found the little steam-drawn notes he'd left on the mirror and wiped them away with a cold, wet cloth. We were a silent, efficient team, dismantling a life. When we were done, 5 bulging trash bags sat by the front door like grim trophies. I placed the memory box on top of one of them. The apartment felt bigger, emptier, and cleaner. It felt like mine again. Then we waited. I made more tea, and we sat on opposite ends of the couch, the manila envelope of evidence resting on the coffee table between us like a peace treaty. At 7:15 p.m., we heard his key in the lock. My entire body went rigid. Chloe flinched, her teacup rattling in its saucer. The door swung open, and Mark walked in. He stopped dead in the doorway, his eyes darting from me to Chloe, then to the trash bags, then back to us. The color drained from his face. He looked like a cornered animal. His carefully constructed worlds hadn't just collided, they were sitting on his living room couch, sipping tea and waiting for him. "Sarah, Chloe, what is this?" he stammered, his voice a pathetic squeak. He was trying for confusion, but all I could see was pure, unadulterated panic. I didn't say a word. I just raised an eyebrow and took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea. It was Chloe who spoke first. "This," she said, her voice shaking but clear as she gestured to the trash bags, "is your stuff from my apartment. And this," she pointed a trembling finger at me, "is your girlfriend. Not your roommate. Your girlfriend of 3 years, you pathological liar." Mark opened his mouth, then closed it again. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Sarah, baby, listen. This is a huge misunderstanding. She's crazy. She's obsessed." "Am I?" I finally said, my voice dangerously calm. I picked up the manila envelope and slid it across the coffee table toward him. "Is this a misunderstanding? Your picture of her in our bed? Your texts about how you can't wait for your roommate to move out? The $2,000 you stole from our house fund to pay for her apartment?" Each question was a hammer blow. He visibly deflated, all the fight going out of him. The lies were gone. He had nothing left. He was exposed, standing in the ruins of the life he'd torched. I can explain," he whispered, but the words were hollow. There was no explanation. There was only the ugly truth, laid bare under the warm lights of our living room. "There's nothing to explain. I said, standing up. Chloe stood with me, a united front. Your things are by the door. I want you out of my apartment. Tonight. Your apartment? He scoffed, a flicker of his old arrogance returning. My name is on the lease, too. It is, I agreed sweetly. And tomorrow our landlord will be receiving a copy of this lease, along with a certified letter from me exercising the early termination clause due to extreme personal circumstances. I'll be paying the penalty fee out of my personal account, the one you don't have access to anymore. You have 30 days to get your name off the lease and find somewhere else to live, but tonight you're not sleeping here. I walked to the door and opened it wide. Get out, Mark! He stared at me, his jaw working, searching for a threat, an angle, an argument he could win. He found nothing. He looked at Chloe, who just shook her head with disgust. Defeated, he grabbed the trash bags, his movements clumsy and graceless. He couldn't carry them all at once. He had to make 2 trips, a pathetic, humiliating parade of his own belongings. On his final trip out, he paused in the doorway and looked at me one last time. I loved you, he said, his voice thick with self-pity. No, you didn't, I replied, the words feeling truer than anything I had ever said. You don't know how. And with that, I closed the door in his face, turned the deadbolt, and leaned against it, the finality of the click echoing in the quiet room. When I turned around, Chloe was still standing there, looking lost. We were 2 women who should have been rivals, left in the aftermath of a storm we'd created together. Thank you, she said softly. I'm still furious and humiliated, but thank you for telling me the truth. You deserve to know, I said. We both did. She picked up her purse to leave, and I didn't stop her. Our alliance was one of necessity, and it had served its purpose. As she left, she paused. For what it's worth, she said, you're going to be so much better off without him. I knew she was right. After she was gone, I stood alone in the center of the living room. It was over. The rage was gone. The need for revenge was sated. In its place was a profound, aching emptiness, but it wasn't a void of despair. It was the clean, quiet emptiness of a space that has been cleared out, ready for something new. I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. He thought his phone was locked. He thought his secrets were safe. He thought he could have it all. But he didn't know that a woman's intuition, once awakened, is a key that can unlock any secret. And he never, ever knew that I had added my fingerprint. He had underestimated the roommate, and now he had lost everything. I took a deep breath, the first truly free breath I'd taken in months, and I smiled. It was time for my next chapter.